Hi, this is Ezek with the Eastside Church of Christ in Baytown, Texas. Thanks for joining us for our Bible reading for the week of November 15th through the 21st, 2020. We continue in the Old Testament in the book of Ezekiel. And Ezekiel chapters 46 through 48 conclude the temple vision that began back in chapter 40 and also conclude the book. Ezekiel speaks of the prince and then describes tribal land allotments that are very different than the allotments that are described back in Joshua's book. Chapter 47 of Ezekiel describes a stream of water that begins as a trickle from the temple, and it grows wider and wider and wider while it nourishes fish and trees and plants. Verse 9 of chapter 47 says, "So everything will live where the river goes." What a beautiful expression of blessedness that comes from God. The last verse in the book promises that God will again dwell with his people. And it's a promise of ultimate hope, not only for exiled Israel, but for all those who desire closeness to God. No, we begin and go all the way through the entire book of Daniel this week. Daniel is a sweeping panorama of history that reaches far beyond Daniel's old time. Apparently, taken to Babylon with the first wave of exiles in 605 BC, the book follows Daniel's life as he rises to official prominence in Babylon and exemplifies the opportunity to live godly in a foreign land. Of special interest might be the dream that Daniel interprets in chapter 2 that foretells the establishment of God's kingdom and even the historical time frame of its appearance. The activities of several nations and political powers are foretold in the book, and it's easy to get bogged down in all that history. I recommend a good, concise commentary to help see how minutely God foretold events decades, even hundreds of years before they actually happened. Well, as we go over into our New Testament reading in John's Gospel, Jesus continues his discourse with the disciples on the night that he's betrayed, and he promises a helper, the Holy Spirit, who will work through the truth that he reveals in order to convict the world. John 17 is truly what we can call the Lord's Prayer. We usually think of what we call the Our Father as the Lord's Prayer. John 17 contains for us a prayer that Jesus lifts up to God as first he prays for himself, then for his immediate disciples, and then for all those who would come to faith through their work, us. And soon after, of course, Jesus is betrayed in the garden. He goes through a series of illegal trials and is finally handed over to be executed, hung on a cross. And the scene at the cross is very somber and dramatic. And finally, Jesus is taken down and buried. But of course, the grave could not hold him. We're treated to the wonderful scene of his resurrection and appearance to his disciples. John gives a synopsis in chapter 20 and verses 30 and 31 concerning why he chose what he chose to write about. And he reminds us again that the gospel is the power of God to salvation. He said, "These have been written so that you may believe that Jesus is the Christ, the Son of God, and that by believing you may have life in his name." That's why John wrote the book. Well, thanks for joining us this week in our Eastside Bible reading, and hope to see you again next time. God bless you.